I suppose what's happened with colonisation is that our people have got this sort of quarter-acre section mentality of what it does mean to be whanau. So my mum, my dad, my brothers and my sisters and my nieces and nephews, and that's really what constitutes a family. And for many of our Māori whanau today, that is what whanau is. For myself, it's all-encompassing of everybody that has, whether it be a 256th of the blood that runs in their body, if they have that same whakapapa as myself, then that's what whanau is to me. Yeah.
It's the people who help you, the people who are there for you, the generations gone and the generations to come.
Whanau, well, I guess if we would do a straight translation, it would be a family. But I think the term today we use far more widely than just your relations, those people who have a shared ancestry. We use whanau today to represent groups of people who perhaps come together for a shared kaupapa. There might be a topic of interest or an activity. It might be sport, it might be kapahaka, for instance, a group such as that we refer to, this is our netball whanau, or this is our kapahaka whanau. So although we're not related, related in a blood link, the idea, the concept of the word is that we are together as a group for a common purpose. And I think today that's how we see the word whanau used far more than just, this is my whanau. I mean, in a Māori world, our whanau is not just mum, dad and the brothers and sisters. It's far, far wider. Our whanau, whānui, all of our relations are whanau. And Māori are great for adopting people who are not necessarily blood relations, our whāngai. So our whānau encompasses a big group of people. And like I say, it's commonly used now to identify a group who have come together for that common vision, perhaps.
They're there to help, they're there to support, they're there to criticise, to keep you going on a straight line. Your whānau are there to support you and your whānau and your tamariki to grow well in the world today. It's a bit of a challenging world, so whānau support is awesome, I think.
It's really their safety blanket against the cold, harsh world that's out there. The parents and the caregivers are there to look after the children and to make sure they're okay and fed and warm and are kept from harm.
When Eddie and I were bringing up our children when they were young, it seemed like a noisy place, our house with so many children around, and we were really supported. I enjoyed my parenting because I was lucky enough to have the support of whānau. My parents, Eddie's parents, our uncles and aunties, and I just think of the kids' sports games, We'd have my parents there, Eddie's parents would be coming to watch the rugby. I mean, they'd had their days of standing on wet, cold rugby fields, but because whānau is what's important, they come out in their gumboots and their woolly jackets to watch their mokos play. And so do my aunties and uncles, Again, they've got their own mokos, but, what time are the kids playing tomorrow? So that's just, I think it's beautiful to have that around, that whole strength of numbers and support. Great for babysitting too.
The awhi, the support that the baby can get from all of those surrounding them will help that child grow strong and hopefully into a good person with all the help from everyone else, be it relatives, blood relatives or just friends.
I think the benefits for young children growing up with families who do things together is a good example and a role model for them to follow when they're adults and have their own children. There's some sense of security and routine and safety and something that they can rely on. To be there at night time, they're going to have a meal and we're going to talk about things. They'll have an opportunity to do that. And if they've got something really important on, then there'll be things and steps taken to make sure that the family can get there.
It's just being with your whanau, exposing your children to their whanau and to those around them who are there to help them and support them and criticise them. And yeah, just getting them in there and exposing them to all that, to their relations, so they know that that is their whanau and they feel comfortable in those circles. That's how we practice whanau in our house, anyway. Yeah.
Every Sunday, I call my whanau.
Yeah.
We go with Dad to church. Every morning I'm getting my children up, they all know, and we meet at the church house. Then we go home, we have one big fat meal, and that to me is whanau, feeding the whanau, getting together on Sundays.
When we talk about whanau and what constitutes a whanau, what are the expectations that we can have of each other as whanau members? What are the obligations and responsibilities that we have to each other? I suppose, and it really depends because of how dynamic and how diverse many of our families are today. And a lot of that comes from the way in which we're brought up and the values which are instilled in us from our parents. And, my mum and dad always brought us up that we were to love and care and nurture each other, haki and all. Do you know what I mean? Regardless of what happens, is that we were to be there for each other. That included our aunties, our uncles, our cousins, and anyone else who happened to need us, and and to understand that we were fortunate. We had a fortunate upbringing. I'm fortunate, especially I'm Māori, and I've got two parents that are still together. It's a rare thing these days to have two parents, and my mum and dad have been together I think about 43 years now. And so being able to understand that, to be able to respond in the appropriate way when someone needs it. One of the things, and it's sort of a bit of a thing that one of my relations has talked about, is our threshold of action. And for many of our people, our threshold to respond to a whanau in need, it just keeps going higher and higher because we've got, the complexity of life and all of the own issues that we've got going on in our own lives. And so, sort of being able to worry about what's actually happening for other whanau members over the fence or down the road, it's sort of like, it's a lot easier just not to worry about those things. But, we've always sort of been brought up that, you keep the threshold down there and never ever forget what your responsibilities are to each other.
Well, my whanau means more than anything else. There's been a lot of occasions where, you can get yourself into a situation and you kind of need help and, oh my gosh, what do I do? And it's always your mother, your uncle, your cousin, your brother that I ring. And I've not been let down, and I want to be able to provide that for my children as well.
My aunties and uncles, my mum, my dad, my cousins, all of those people that have contributed to making me who I am today have been huge influences in my life, have all been my family. And, I know that there have been times in my life where if I didn't have them there, I would have really struggled to come through some of the trials and tribulations that I've been through. And so when when someone says how important is whanau to you, it's everything to me. A person's greatest strength is their greatest weakness, and whanau are definitely my greatest strength. And I know that if anything happens to members within my whanau, it's also my greatest weakness as well. So I honestly couldn't imagine my life without I was a really young dad, young parent. me and my kid's mum, and you know, we were just so fortunate to have, you know, parents that loved us and adored us, and you know, it was unconditional love, regardless. You know, I've been there, done that, and probably done things that I wouldn't say on camera. But you know, I've had my mum and dad and my aunties and my uncles have loved me for who I am, and yeah, they've just supported me through some really difficult times in my life and stood by me, even when they've known I mightn't necessarily have been in the right too. And I think that it's been that's really contributed to how I've come to how I've ended up. I'm not saying I've ended up perfect or anything like that, but you know, like it's definitely contributed to me, and I think, you know, sort of my strength and standing as how, you know, in terms of how I feel about where I am in my life at this point in time anyway.
I think that a strong family, whatever that might look like, is really important, and strong might be a whole lot of other things too. Might not just mean that you're strong because you have lots of money or lots of toys or lots of things like that. I know that when my daughters were young, we certainly didn't have a lot of that. But the one thing that we did have was each other, and we did a lot of things together, and we had a lot of time. So I think time is really important too, and it starts running out fast as they get older, and the time with our children is so short that it's really important, I think, to make sure we remember to spend that time and feel how great it is.
I look at what a lot of people would class as whanau dysfunction, and I look at, you know, the amount of our families and our young people who have been taken out of whanau care and put into state care, you know, more particularly maybe with SIFs or with whanau who they don't necessarily have a whakapapa connection to. And I'm, you know, to be able to be with people who you have a whakapapa link to, who hopefully will keep you well connected to those things that, you know, make you who you are. I think many people take for granted that to be brought up in a loving and caring and, you know, whanau environment is a given, but for many of our families that's just not the case, and a lot of our tamariki aren't fortunate enough to be brought up in those environments. And so, you know, I just think I just couldn't imagine, you know, like, I mean, to me there's nothing more important than whanau, you know, and I think, you know, ideally whakapapa whanau is the ideal whanau to be brought up within, but if not, that, you know, that they be brought up in a loving, caring and nurturing environment, and if that can't be provided by whakapapa whanau, then as long as they're brought up in an environment where people love them and respect them and acknowledge, you know, who they are and their cultural diversity as well.